Should you summon for Space Doughnut Cookie and Stardust Cookie? Well, in today's video, guys, that's what we're going to be talking about. I have done testing on Space Doughnut Cookie, and basically, Stardust Cookie skill, I think that speaks for itself when we hop into his skill. But I've done testing on Space Doughnut Cookie at least through Arena, World Exploration, Cookie Alliance, and Guild Boss even. So guys, let's go ahead and talk about my discoveries today, and should you summon for these cookies. Alright guys, so hopping into the game now. Space Doughnut Cookie is a charged frontline cookie that uses the ability Donut Beam. And what this ability does is he fires the Donut Beam, he deals damage, he gives them a damage reduction debuff, and he amplifies debuff the enemies receive. If he hits enemies that are not cookies, he'll turn them into donuts. And when he turns enough enemies into donuts, he'll be using a special super donut beam. And on top of that, he'll also be dealing extra damage to enemies with the damage reduction debuff. So taking a look at some of his scalings now keep in mind this is only like for a level 49, level 50 skill. So it will vary as he goes up to level 75. I just didn't have enough charge powders because darn you dev sisters, you released Milky Way Cookie and that's where all mine went. So for cookies, it's going to be up to 6 hits for 1.3 seconds, 79.1% of single hit damage, plus 47.4 of extra damage to targets under the defense reducing debuffs. Others hits up to 6 times over 1.3 seconds with 67.8% of single hit damage and 94.8% of extra damage to targets under the defense reduction debuff. Defense reduction minus 40% for 10 second stacks up to one time. Debuff amplification 20% for 10 seconds. Donut transformation 2 seconds. Super donut blast triggers at 10 donut transformations, and for that super donut blast he's going to do 303% of attack to cookies and 379% of attack to other enemies, and then stun the enemy for 1.5 seconds. I think you guys can already figure this from the skill alone, but as you can see, his ability does not affect cookies, meaning this doesn't make him too good for like Arena, unless you're facing a summoner teams or teams that are using summons. Then for that case he could be viable for it. But other than that, it's not really good as far as damage goes or anything like that. What you're really looking for in Arena for him would probably be the defense reduction, and most importantly the debuff amplification, because this will amplify any other debuffs you put on the enemy, meaning like your sleep, meaning freezes, meaning even Stardust's debuff that he puts on the enemies. It amplifies all of that. So as far as Arena goes, that would be his use case there. Now, as far as your other applications like World Exploration, Alliance, and Guild Boss, he could actually be pretty helpful. So when I first got Space Doughnut, I wanted to test him out here against the Living Abyss boss because I think he can do good damage against the minions, and I wasn't wrong in that aspect really. The only problem I'm having with this is I don't have a very high ascension on him right now, meaning that he is not hitting very high damage on this boss, or I should say this boss is not taking as much damage as normal because Werewolf is the one getting eaten because of how much HP Werewolf has. Now, I believe once you get him higher HP, meaning you get him higher ascension, in the case that your wolf is 5A already, like mine is, I think you need him 4-star, maybe full peanuts to actually get him over the HP of Werewolf Cookie. When that does become the case, though, I think that this will be an absolutely abysmal or amazing guild boss team here for the Living Abyss. Just judging from the damage we already get from this, he does a decent amount of damage, honestly a really good amount of damage against the Living Abyss boss already. As a, you know, he's a 1-star now because I wanted to see how much he could actually get as far as HP goes per ascension. This is gonna be the damage right here that we got for this run. We had around 73 million damage, which is not bad considering he's the one that got eaten all the time. He did 17 million damage. That means once you get him ascended more and once you get him the toppings he needs and he's the one getting eaten, he will probably do more damage. Honestly, this will probably up your damage of the Abyss. We'll have to wait to figure that out for sure. I'm gonna do some more summoning for him today and more testing on him, and we'll release a guild boss video on him whenever I get that figured out. But yeah, guys, for guild boss, he looks pretty decent for already, just for the Living Abyss boss alone anyways. And looking at some of his other applications now, like for Guild Alliance, he actually seems pretty good for this too, because he turns, you know, most of the enemies into donuts, meaning he gets that charge up, and that basically turns them into donuts like a stun for them really, because they can't do anything. And then once he gets that charge all the way up, he does stun after that. So yeah, it looks like he's pretty good for Cookie Alliance as well, or at least a good substitute unit. Not like the best unit for here. I still think that Purple Yam is better in Cookie Alliance than Space Doughnut right now, just because really the donuts don't last too long, and he doesn't do as much damage. Purple Yam is really good at knocking all enemies away and kind of spreading out and dispersing the damage a little bit better. But overall, I think that Space Doughnut does do a pretty good job here as far as like keeping the enemies down. Also, I forget to mention, in World Exploration 2, he does deal with the rats pretty well, so I think he's a good use in World Exploration as well for dealing with the rats on stage 16, so that'll help you guys out a lot if you're having trouble with the rats exploding on you. Alright boys, now let's take him into an arena match here, showing off what he can do in arena on this team right here. We're using basically a blueberry pie team. He's not going to get any stuns off, but he will increase the debuffs or amplify the debuffs that we're already giving out, like the stun from Hollyberry and also the sleep from Moonlight. So this should be a pretty good showing right here of what he can actually do in arena. They're using a double healer comp with BTS in the back, which is usually what counters my team, but if we can get a lot of blueberry shots off here, it'll be pretty nice. Also, that defense down and the debuff amplification should come in handy as well as far as like dealing damage and killing the enemies, just because it helps out Moonlight so much. Do a little bit extra, you know what I mean? And boys, we won the match, and look how cute Space Doughnut looks. I love him. Space Doughnut's my man right here. Look at him. Anyways, so as you can see, your Space Doughnut didn't really do too much damage against the enemies here, but I do think he provided enough support for Blueberry Pie Cookie and Moonlight Cookie to actually get bigger debuffs off and deal more damage. With that 30% defense down, I think that does help a lot for the team and allows them to do more damage to the enemies. But guys, before we talk about Stardust Cookie, let's talk about how you should be subscribing to this YouTube channel, because only like 5% of you guys are. It would really help the channel out if you guys subscribe to the channel. I would love you forever if you did. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about Stardust Cookie now. But make sure you subscribe first. Now that about wraps up our portion for Space Doughnut Cookie as far as testing and talking about his skill goes. Let's talk about Stardust Cookie now, his ability, what it does. And then after talking about Stardust Cookie's ability, we'll talk about should you summon for these cookies. So, Stardust Cookie is an ambush middle unit with the Wrath of the Stars ability. So what Stardust Cookie's ability does is he targets the enemy with the highest attack. He does area damage and amplifies debuff. He does more damage the more buffs the enemies have. He prevents them from gaining buffs. He increases damage received and decreases attack and healing. If he crits, the enemies will fall asleep. If his debuff is dispelled, he'll do big area damage. If his debuff is dispelled, then the enemies will receive big area damage. He's also gaining a damage resist buff on top of that. And finally, if the enemies are asleep, he'll be shooting meteors down to damage them as well. Yeah, judging from his skill alone, he has like 7 cookies in one. He's kind of cracked. He's just built diff. He's just kind of like that, you know? So let's go ahead and talk about his scalings now. Wrath of the Stars damage is 231% of attack. Additional damage per number of buffs is 65% of attack per buff. That is huge. That is deadly even. That means your BTS? I don't know what you should be using now, because doing an extra 65% of attack per buff, and generally you have like 6 buffs on you when you go into a battle, that's a huge damage buff. So if you went into battle with like 6 buffs, that's like an extra 390% damage that he's going to deal to you because you had those buffs on. He's also going to be amplifying debuffs by 10% for 12 seconds. Signs of the Stars, he prevents buffs for 20 seconds and increases damage received by 35%, reduces attack by 30%, and reduces healing by 40%. Yeah, no longer are the matches of double healers. Yeah, double healers just aren't going to work as well anymore, I don't think. Now here's where it becomes a little tricky at right now. If you dispel the Sign of the Stars debuff, the enemies will fall asleep for 1.5 seconds. He is going to do area damage equal to 1000% of attack. 1000% of attack on an ambush cookie? That's like the second highest attack stat in the game. What the hell? That's a lot of damage. 1000% for area damage? That's like on the levels of Vampire, but like an AoE Vampire attack. That's crazy right there. That's tricky. That's sus. That's very sus. And then damage resist is going to be plus 35% for 7 seconds, stacks up to 1 time. So you know, when they give him a damage resist passive like this, he's built for PvP. And then he's going to be doing meteor damage. Is going to be 301% of attack. So that means when the enemies fall asleep, because you dispel them, the enemies fall asleep, you do area damage, and then meteors fall and do more damage on them. So isn't that just amazing? This cookie is so great, guys. He is so amazing. It makes me sad. But let's go ahead and talk about it. Should you summon for Space Doughnut Cookie? Yes, I think you should. He is really good for PvE content, or he's good for PvE content, and also he can be good for Arena. I see Space Doughnut Cookie is kind of how I saw Milky Way Cookie. They're not great at anything really, but they are good. They are good. They are good fits for different places of the game, and they can work. It's what you call a well-balanced cookie, Death Sisters. So yes, I think you should pull a couple of copies of Space Doughnut Cookie. So let's talk about the other cookie that Death Sisters released, Stardust Cookie, which is not as balanced as Space Doughnut Cookie. Stardust Cookie, yes, you should actually get him. Get as many as you can, actually, because if you go into Arena without him, good luck. That's all I'm gonna say. You're gonna need him for higher levels of Arena. Obviously, he just does too much to not use on the team. His debuff is absolutely insane. There's no one that resists it. He just does so much damage as well. It's just insane. You need a Stardust Cookie. I think, judging from looking at the scalings now, I think he is probably going to be the best cookie for Arena now. I think he's going to beat out Sherbert as far as being the best cookie in Arena. So yeah, guys, definitely get a Stardust Cookie if you can. He's absolutely going to be essential to have. This is not even talking about the PvE aspects. We just know usually if a cookie is really, really good for PvP, they are generally good for like normal PvE stuff, barring Guild Boss. I don't know what he's gonna do for Guild Boss yet because I don't have him and I can't really test it there. Anyways, guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. Hope everyone enjoyed. Tell me what your thoughts are on both these cookies in the comments below. And yeah, guys, that's gonna do it. I'll see you guys in the next one later. Bye bye.